For 1,000 cycles, the pre-dawn Dominion had ruled the stars with an iron grip. Their fleets moved through the void like storms, black and silent, devouring all in their path. Worlds burned beneath their plasma rains. Empires crumbled, and resistance became a forgotten word. Across the galactic rim, species whispered one thing when the shadow of the Dominion appeared: surrender or be erased. The pre-dawns believed themselves perfect hunters. They called themselves the apex of creation. Their commanders laughed at diplomacy, mocking the idea that any species could ever stand against them. For centuries, they faced only the weak and the frightened, civilizations more interested in survival than defiance. Then one day, a small blue world appeared on their charts. It was insignificant at first glance, a minor planet orbiting a yellow star, isolated at the edge of a spiral arm. Its inhabitants were primitive by galactic standards, barely out of their own atmosphere a few centuries ago. No wormhole network, no quantum gates, no interstellar colonies beyond their own system. And yet the scans showed something that caught the attention of the pre-dawn high command. Every corner of that world glowed with signs of conflict. Weapons research, defense networks, orbital fortresses under construction, and fleets of steel giants rising from their shipyards. The humans, as they called themselves, seemed born for war. The pre-dawn strategists studied their history and were baffled. These beings had destroyed each other by the billions, rebuilt, then done it again. Every time they tore themselves apart, they returned stronger, more advanced, more united. The pre-dawns could not understand it. Conflict was supposed to weaken a species, but for humanity it was the forge that shaped them. The Dominion decided to make Earth their next conquest. When their armada arrived, the stars themselves seemed to dim. Hundreds of warships appeared in orbit, spiked angular vessels glowing with red energy. Their leader issued a single message to the planet below. It was not a warning. It was a declaration. Surrender or vanish. For a moment, there was silence across the planet. The pre-dawns expected begging. They expected fear. But what came instead was a message carried on a calm, steady voice. This is humanity. We do not surrender. The transmission ended, and in that instant, something changed in the void. The first wave of pre-dawn ships descended through the atmosphere, targeting major human cities. Plasma cannons flared, vaporizing defense platforms and ground batteries. Skyscrapers fell, oceans boiled, and continents burned. The humans were outmatched in numbers and technology. But when the pre-dawns thought victory was certain, the humans countered in a way no other race had ever dared. They launched their nuclear weapons. The explosions were crude by galactic standards, but the shock waves of defiance sent a ripple through the fleet. Entire strike groups were obliterated in blinding flashes. Human pilots rammed their ships into enemy cruisers, detonating warheads at point-blank range. The Dominion sensors filled with chaos, explosions, debris, and something else they had never faced before: sacrifice. The pre-dawn commanders called it madness. The humans called it courage. Within days, the invasion faltered. The Dominion pulled back to regroup, confused and furious. No species had ever inflicted losses on them during an initial assault. The Council of War demanded answers. Scouts sent back reports describing Earth's surface littered with wreckage, but also factories still burning, still producing. The humans were rebuilding even as the skies burned above them. One analyst from the Dominion's intelligence corps made a grim observation. If they can do this under siege, imagine what they can do when they are free. The High Command ignored the warning and ordered a second invasion. This time they sent 3 fleets. The sky above Earth turned crimson as thousands of pre-dawn warships entered orbit. The ground trembled from the thunder of their bombardment. But humanity had changed again. They had adapted. From hidden shipyards on the far side of their moon, something vast emerged. It was not sleek or graceful like the alien cruisers. It was raw steel, layered armor, and relentless purpose. A warship built not for beauty but survival. It moved slowly at first, then accelerated, engines burning with the fury of 10,000 suns. Its name was simple: the Resolute. When it appeared on the battlefield, the pre-dawns laughed. They saw only a single ship and called it foolish resistance. But when the Resolute fired, laughter ended. The beam tore through 3 battleships in a single shot. Its main cannon, built from human ingenuity and desperation, used magnetically compressed plasma so powerful that even the void shimmered. Every time it fired, the heavens shook. Predon shields cracked, hulls split, and crews screamed as their vessels disintegrated into molten shards. The humans had learned. They had studied every fragment of alien technology they captured. They combined it with their own, turning salvaged wrecks into weapons no one had ever imagined. Within hours, the Resolute had turned the tide of battle. It became a legend among humans and a nightmare among the Predons. But humanity was not alone. Across the galaxy, oppressed species watched the transmissions of Earth's defense. They saw the impossible happen. The undefeated hunters had been stopped. The myth of Predon invincibility had been shattered. Small rebellions began to rise in the outer colonies of the Dominion. Slave worlds revolted, emboldened by the sight of human defiance. The balance of power shifted, and for the first time in centuries, the Predons knew fear. Their leaders ordered a full-scale assault to crush Earth once and for all. They gathered every ship they could, forming the largest fleet ever seen. The galaxy trembled as it moved, a wave of darkness ready to drown one small world. Humanity prepared. The Resolute was no longer alone. Dozens of warships now stood beside it, each one carrying the same raw power, the same fire of defiance. Humanity had built a fleet not of elegance but of resolve. When the Predon armada arrived, they expected a massacre. What they found instead was war unlike any they had fought before. The void became a storm of light. Missiles streaked across the stars, railguns thundered, and ships exploded in flashes that could be seen from neighboring systems. Human vessels moved with brutal efficiency, coordinating like a single mind. Every loss only made them strike harder. Predon commanders shouted orders, but their formations crumbled. They could not comprehend how humans fought without fear. Even as ships burned, even as entire squadrons were lost, the humans pressed forward. The Resolute led the charge, ramming through enemy lines, shields flaring, armor melting. It destroyed flagship after flagship, refusing to fall. Its hull bore the scars of 100 battles. But it kept moving. Then, as the battle reached its peak, the humans activated their final plan. Hidden across the asteroid belt, thousands of automated stations powered up. They were relics of Earth's early defense network, now upgraded with alien technology. Each station linked to the others, forming a massive lattice of energy. The humans called it the net. When it fired, the entire battlefield lit up. Every Predon ship within range was struck by waves of electromagnetic fury. Systems overloaded, reactors failed, and the great fleet of the Dominion began to die. Human warships surged through the chaos, finishing what the net had started. By the end of that day, the stars around Earth were filled with drifting wreckage and silence. The Predon Dominion had lost. Across the galaxy, their empire began to collapse. Once feared governors fled, slave worlds broke free, and rebellions turned into revolutions. The predators who once ruled the stars now ran from the very name of humanity. In the ruins of their capital world, the last Predon warlord sat in disbelief, staring at the reports. It was impossible, unthinkable. A single species, barely known a few cycles ago, had destroyed everything they had built. He whispered to himself, voice trembling. What are they? The answer came not from a scientist nor a philosopher, but from a captured officer who had fought the humans face to face. They are not hunters. They are survivors. They fight not because they must win, but because they refuse to die. The galaxy changed forever after that war. Humanity did not seek conquest or revenge. They rebuilt the shattered systems, offered aid to freed worlds, and formed a new alliance. For the first time, the stars were united not by fear, but by hope. But deep in the void, on the bridge of the Resolute, the admiral of the human fleet stood in silence, looking at the stars. He knew it was not the end. The universe was vast, and new threats would come. Yet he also knew something the Predons never understood. The strength of humanity was not in their weapons or their ships. It was in their spirit, the unyielding will to stand, to fight, to rise again no matter how many times they fell. As the Resolute turned toward the unknown, its engines flared once more, and its message echoed across the galaxy. Humanity does not fear the dark. The dark fears humanity. And for the first time in recorded history, the predators of the galaxy looked to the stars not as hunters, but as prey.